Guys, Kirk with DFS Bros here with Nick. We're going to break down our week 2 picks on DraftKings settings. We're going to do a quick recap, and I'm going to take Nick to that.
All right, hey guys, this is our week 1 recap from our DraftKings picks. We went about 50-50 on our picks. That's about what most people will get. Cam Newton and Mitch Trubisky, they did what we wanted them to do. They were the 7th ranked and the 8th ranked quarterback, both returning over 4x value. Antonio Gibson didn't do too well. He had a lot of opportunities, but Ron Rivera gave the goal line work to Peyton Barber, and he vultured 2 touchdowns from Gibson. If he had those, it would have been a completely different day. Josh Jacobs, number 1 running back on the week. Our wide receivers, we didn't do too well. We promise we'll do better this week for our wide receiver picks. Deshaun Jackson, Terry McLaurin, they had all the opportunity in the world. They just went against tough competitors on the other side. Deshaun Jackson was the number 1 receiver in air yards. He was the number 1 in our hearts as well. Tight ends, Jack Doyle and Hayden Hurst. With Hayden Hurst, a lot of the targets went to Russell Gage instead, which didn't leave a lot of room for Hurst, as Matt Ryan had 3 wide receivers all go over 100 yards. Expect Hurst to do big things throughout this season, though, and expect him to see him on our show even more. Jack Doyle, he got ample opportunity from Phillip Rivers. He is another person who will probably be on our show again this year. Chargers D and Jets D, we both hit well on those. I will say, though, around 12:55 on Sunday morning, I took Chargers D out of all of my lineups and put in Washington defense instead. So I did pivot on that, but the 2 defenses that we put on our video, they both still hit, both having double-digit points, both returning over 3x value. And now on to our week 2 picks. We are starting with quarterback, and Kirk will lead us off with that.
All right, so starting off, extreme value at the quarterback position, I think this week is going to be Kyler Murray versus Washington at home. Kyler, that offense is just going to explode. He's only 6,100 on DK. They have a 28 team total. I think it's going to keep rising throughout the week. It's one of the highest team totals. Dating back to last year, Washington was a pretty bad defense against the quarterback. I know they have this great defensive line, but right when you get past that, their safeties are pretty bad, cornerbacks are pretty bad, and they just let up explosive plays, which with that offense spread and their pace could mean multiple explosive plays. If dating back last year, they allowed Daniel Jones to have 38 points in week 16. Week 17, Dak put up 34 points. And then last week, they were down 17-0, and Wentz looked like a star in the first half. Then that pass rush got it together, and they just kept Wentz on his back the whole entire second half. But, yes, I get the defensive line is improved, but they're going across country to Arizona, and Arizona's going to come out and show off. They already showed Hopkins off week 1, those enormous targets. And when you have a superstar like that, it's just going to elevate Murray's potential. And his rush yards were just insane. So you just compile all that together, plus touchdowns, 6,100. He's extremely cheap for that price. We won't see that much more.
I agree. Kyler Murray, this is probably the cheapest he'll be all year.
He'll be heavily owned too.
Yes. Heavily owned and very cheap with fantastic opportunity. My quarterback is Dak Prescott against the Atlanta Falcons.
Eagles fan. Yeah, interesting.
That's fine. Gotta go statistics, man. Last week, the Atlanta Falcons allowed Russell Wilson to be the number 1 quarterback on the week. Russell Wilson cooked out there. He was Mr. Unlimited, as he says in his Twitter video he posted. And that's something that we saw last year as well. People picked on the Falcons defense almost every single week last year. If you were to go back and look, you would see the quarterback facing the Falcons defense was usually one of the highest owned quarterbacks in DFS that week. Dak Prescott is a guy who can cook as well as Russ almost any week. I think he can easily hit 30 points, especially with having Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup, as well as the defense having to give proper attention to Ezekiel Elliott. With that being said, we're going to get into our running backs now.
Okay, just another point on the Atlanta defense. They have a poor tackling defense.
sorry.
They throw the ball way more than anybody, so it's going to give them more plays per game. And just anytime you're picking a quarterback against them, you're either taking your quarterback at home, which is going to make their team value higher, their points total, or either you're going to pick them on the road, which they're going to be in a dome, which always elevates.
No fans as well.
Yeah.
No fans, completely neutral. Dome games this year, they're like perfect. There's no wind.
Shootouts. It's insane.
Like completely neutral.
Track
like
meets.
Weather isn't an issue. Like we're gonna be picking on Falcons, Saints, Lions, Minnesota, teams like that a lot this year.
Awful defenses. All right, so going into my running back, it's one of the guys I drafted pretty much everywhere in season longs, Jonathan Taylor. He's going to have enormous opportunity behind this number one run blocking unit that the Colts do have. Quarterback throws more to the running back than any quarterback probably in NFL history. Doing about 24% is the numbers I've been hearing throughout the industry. So you're going to have multiple catches. He's one of the best college runners we've ever seen, especially in a zone blocking system that the Colts do use. He's going to have a lot of opportunity. And this Minnesota defense is just bad all around. Hopefully we get to see the Colts offense like we thought we were going to see week one. But either way, you're going to see 20, 25 touches for Jonathan Taylor. He's an enormous talent. Knowing what we know now with Marlon Mack out, I believe that in season long you would have seen about the same thing that you saw with Clyde being a third-round pick and then all of a sudden shooting up to a first round once we heard that Damian Williams was out. So if we would have known that Marlon Mack would have been hurt or if Marlon Mack had opted out of the season, Jonathan Taylor would have been a first-round pick easily. And with that said, we won't see him in the 5,000s anymore. This is the last week. He'll be upper sixes, possible sevens. I've heard people joking, even say 8,000. But it's no joke. He's a top 5 running back. And this game's going to be played in a dome. And 4 of the last 5 running backs that have gone up against Minnesota have scored at least 17 points, DraftKings. So we're looking at 20 points for a guy that's costing $5,700. Give me all the Jonathan Taylor. He's pretty much a lock in all my lineups.
Yeah, for Jonathan Taylor, I like him a lot. He's one of those rare running backs from his freshman year to all the way he came into the NFL. I'm looking at his stats now from college. He only had one season where he had under 300 carries, and that's because he had 299. He is a fantastic running back. He can carry a workload, as he proved all 3 years in college, as he eclipsed 2,000 yards twice. And that's also because he got 1,977 yards in his freshman year with 299 carries. This is a man among boys. He is not like most rookie running backs. He knows how to carry a workload. He has been able to handle 300 carries a year ever since he was 18 years old. Jonathan Taylor, he's fantastic. And for my running back, Derrick Henry, another running back who obviously knows how to carry a load, who did it in college and high school as well. He's going against a very, 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 very weak running defense in the Jacksonville Jaguars. Last year, the Jaguars allowed a combined 50 points to 3 running backs, 50 DraftKings points to 3 running backs. He can do that by himself, as he's had a game against the Jacksonville Jaguars where he got over 50 fantasy points. Expect him to get over 100 yards, 3 touchdowns, at least. Maybe 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns max. And I will say before I give it back to Kirk, I only have 3 running backs in my player pool this week, and that is Ezekiel Elliott, Jonathan Taylor, and Derrick Henry. Those 3 are in every single one of my lineups. I don't care what I have to do. Those 3 are all going to get more than 20 touches, and volume is king in the game that we play, and those 3 are guaranteed volume.
Yeah, I'll say this about Henry. He got 30-plus carries last week. He has great history against this Jags defense. So yeah, give me all of Derrick Henry.
So now we're on to our wide receivers.
All right, so we have breaking news that's going to affect. I did have Paris Campbell as my wide receiver, but I've now switched on to a much cheaper, more affordable option, Adam Humphries. A name
Yeah,
that we haven't heard in a while.
yeah.
So with A.J. Brown out, everybody's going to flock to Corey Davis at 4,000, rightfully so. But if you actually break down the defense and the cornerback matchup, I'm thinking that Boye is going to be covering him, which is going to be an awful matchup,
Yep.
which leaves the middle of the field wide open. Humphries plays in the slot. Last week had 6 catches on 7 targets, and that's with Brown on the field. So I'm thinking maybe if he gets another 7 targets, that's great. But if his role expands to even 10, 12 targets, even if they're dink and dunks, he can find his way around the red zone. So if he scores 1 touchdown, this is a bad Jacksonville defense. I'm still not sold on them. They've unloaded all their talent, everyone. So this is the team that's going to score with Tennessee. I don't think Derrick Henry is going to score every touchdown. So if Adam Humphries finds the end zone once, he's going to be gold. And if not, he's going to hit his value. I really don't see a way that he does not, with all the targets, hit his value at 3,400.
Yeah, I agree. 20% of the targets for the Titans are up for grabs this week because A.J. Brown is out. He had 8 targets as well on this past Monday night. Everyone's going to flock to Corey Davis. They will see they had 7 receptions for 101 yards and 1 touchdown Monday night, and they're like, "Ooh, Corey Davis. We haven't seen his name in a few years." I like Adam Humphries a lot. He's a sneaky play in some tournaments that people will be looking at Corey Davis for. I'm going back to another Cowboys player. I would have 3 Cowboys players, but I feel like putting Zeke over Derrick Henry in my running back spot. Amari Cooper, he had 14 targets week 1. He had 38% of the target share. Only 2 players had more targets, and 3 players only had a higher target share than he did. Last week, DK Metcalf, Chris Carson, and Tyler Lockett all 8 against the Atlanta Falcons. I really said what I needed to say about the Falcons with my Dak Prescott snippet, but Amari Cooper, same things apply to him. He's rated way too cheap, 6,300, with only 2 people getting more targets than him and 3 people getting higher target share than him, and it's just unfair for him to be this cheap this week. You'll be able to get so many great lineups with Amari Cooper being this cheap.
Yeah, I think you pretty much have to have either Cooper or Gallup in a lot of your lineups, if not both. I'm like you. I'm leaning towards Cooper. He was limited in practice today, but I think it's just kind of keep him ready, make sure it doesn't re-aggravate his injury.
Right.
But one thing about Cooper is that at home, he's Superman. He averages 93 yards a game. When he's on the road, he only averages 50. So it's night and day. We've seen those. You've heard that throughout Cooper's career. Sometimes he finishes strong. Sometimes he has great games, then follows it up with a dud. But a lot of the reason why is the home road splits.
Yeah. I will say if Cooper is out, I'll pivot to CD Lamb. I like Michael Gallup, but a lot of people will probably go to him instead of CD Lamb. And I'll just go for the lower owned guy most of the time. But Amari Cooper at 6,300 is way too cheap for the target share he got.
I don't see a way that he doesn't show up for the game, though.
Yeah, I would agree. So now we're on the tight ends. Kirk, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Thing that I really liked doing last year, I've kind of hinted on through some of our videos, is attacking Arizona. I wasn't on it last week, mainly because the price was too high for Kittle, and I wanted to fit in those studs that really paid off, like Devontae Adams, Jacobs, just key pieces that really profited us in week 1. So I'm actually looking at it this week. it's something to run your Arizona stacks back with. So if you do have Drake, who's going to be popular, you do have Murray, all these Arizona players that you think are going to score a bunch of points, it's going to force Washington to throw the ball. And they really don't have that many weapons. Haskins does not look comfortable. And usually when you have young quarterbacks, they throw it to the tight end. We saw that he did have, I believe, 8 targets. He did only catch 4 of them, just mainly because Haskins is not that great of a quarterback. But he did get the touchdown. So that's what matters when it comes to tight ends is touchdown equity if you're not going to get one of those tight ends who has 10-plus targets.
Right.
But I think Nick's going to kind of go after this week.
Thomas is a great target for tight end this week, as he had 26% of their targets last week, which was about 4% more than Terry McLaurin, against a team that is not that great against the tight end that we've been bullying in fantasy football for the last, feels like forever for the tight ends. It was the Giants and now it's the Cardinals. My tight end, I'm picking Chris Herndon. He had 21% of his team's targets last week, second all on the team, 6th highest tight end for target share. Jamison Crowder is going to be out. He had 14 targets and 39% of Sam Darnold's targets, which that is a lot to make up for. It is very obvious from camp, from last year's camp, Sam Darnold likes Chris Herndon. I expect him to get a lot of the targets. San Francisco's defense is banged up. We could see him getting double-digit targets. I could even see him getting double-digit receptions. And if he gets double-digit receptions, he gets 2 extra. He gets 10 points right there if he gets double-digits receptions, and that's already 2x return in value. All you need is like 40 yards and a touchdown, and he has 20 points. Like I said, San Francisco's defense is beat up. Darnold loves him, and if I'm saying if, because even though their defense is beat up, their defense is still good. If the Jets can get down to the red zone or to the 5 zone, I expect Chris Herndon to get probably the only passing touchdown that Sam Darnold is going to throw this weekend.
Yeah. The only thing I will say about Herndon, great value. He is one of those players that we've seen that could first, second catch, turn his ankle, and out for the game. Not wishing that on anybody, knock on wood, but just be a little eerie when you're using your percentages, not maybe to go 100% on him.
100%.
But he is looking like a great value.
I am locking Derrick Henry, Ezekiel Elliott, Jonathan Taylor, and Chris Herndon into every single lineup, and no one can stop me except for my bank account. Me locking in 4 guys to every single lineup, with that being pretty dangerous. We're going to go to defense, and Kirk will start with defense as mine. You'll need a barf bucket for, so go ahead and grab that.
All right, so defense is nothing really lackluster this week. Probably keep it quick just because there's no standout. Last week I was really big on the Jets just because of the price and what it let you do if your team. Luckily, a lot of people, including myself, kind of pivoted. I did still have some Jets exposure, but I had Washington as well. Just the price once you found out that Philly line was banged up.
Yeah.
But this week, I'm going to try to go with the same motto, actually the exact motto, with the Jets. So San Francisco is flying across the states. It always going to have a little jet lag. We're talking about a team that does have injuries in week 1. Kittle's banged up with his knee. Richard Sherman is out. The center for the 49ers, Garland, he's questionable right now. Debo's still out. Brandon Ayuk is banged up. He's still kind of iffy if he's going to play. So there's a lot of question marks with this team. I do see them running the ball and having pretty much an easy day with the Jets. But all it takes is that one play that maybe the Jets could turn up and I think the Jets will get a couple sacks. I'm just hoping the Jets can hold maybe 6 points again and just give the rest of my lineup a lot of opportunity. Like I said, using Humphries. I'm going to have a lot of stars in my lineup. I'm planning on having Kyler, Dak, Zeke, Drake, Cooper, Adams. Love Adams. He's going to be the number 1 wide receiver this year. So go Jets.
Uh, so we'll be staying in New York for defenses, as I'm picking the Giants against the Chicago Bears. I know the defense isn't appealing, but as Kirk said, sometimes you have to pay down for a defense. You have to reach for the bottom of the barrel and just pull out whatever fits your lineup salary. The Giants have scored over 6 points against the Bears the last 3 times they played. As far as fantasy points, they had 6 games last year where they scored over 6 fantasy points. And at 2,400, as Kirk said, that's about what you need to return value. I'm looking for more of like 5 or 6 times return value, which would be about 10 points. Kirk is usually looking about 3. He likes to play a little bit safer than me. But they're not a slouch on defense. I mean, they are a slouch on defense. I mean, they're a really bad defense, but they're going against a really bad offense. I think the Giants, they could pick apart Mitch Trubisky. They can get a few sacks, maybe a few interceptions. Mitch Trubisky is a quarterback that's prone to throwing turnovers. And since I'm locking Derrick Henry and Zeke into every single lineup of mine, that is already – let me do some quick maths real quick. With locking in Zeke and Derrick Henry into my lineup, that is going to be a combined I'm putting 33% of my allotted funds into 2 players. So with that being said, I'm going to need to pay down at a lot of positions. I will be targeting 4,000 price receivers, 3,000 price tight ends. So that's why I like Giants, something towards the bare bottom. And I think hopefully it'll work for me. Kirk?
I think that pretty much does it for week 2. We'll probably come back on and kind of release some of our player pool. As Nick said, running backs is going to be limited. I only have maybe 4 or 5 in mind completely. Just want to pay for the opportunities. So get those guys in that are going to have 25-plus touches a game, and that team is supposed to win. It's supposed to be up so that they get more, and that sometimes I know Derrick Henry doesn't get involved in the receiving game, but use those guys who get 15-plus rushes plus 5-plus catches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree, especially if Jonathan Taylor, where you see a huge mismatch. Even this week, Antonio Gibson or Peyton Barber, I think they're both, if you're playing in the Millionaire Maker and maxing out 150 lineups, I think those 2 guys you could throw a dartboard at, and whoever gets to goal line work between those 2, you could easily return 3x or 4x value from one of those 2. But that is our week 2, and hope you guys have a good day.
Awesome.
Sounds good.